All of you have very kindly muted your microphones. We thank you very much. If you would like to, you can turn on captions at the lower right corner of your screen if you're having trouble hearing at all. Sometimes seeing the words and hearing them at the same time can make a big difference to your comprehension. And we also have a chat window in the upper right corner. It's a little square with 3 lines in it, and you can type in any questions that you have come up while we're talking to you this afternoon. So if anything comes up that we don't answer, just give us a little question in that chat box and we will try to respond, or we will promise to get back to you as soon as we can. So let's get started here on our tour to Charleston and Savannah, and just look at that photo of the azaleas and the rhododendrons and the trees all in bloom. I grew up in Virginia and North Carolina, and I do love the South, I have to admit, and especially this time of the year in the spring. It's just a glorious, glorious time to take this trip. Before we get started, let me talk for just a few minutes about how we're planning for safe and healthy travel in the future. We know you're all worried about it because we are too. We just got back from our daughter's wedding and we've been self-quarantined for 14 days. And, you know, we have things to do just like you do. So we want to get back to our lives as soon as possible. And we want that for you too. So we're very, very conscious of that question in all of your minds. How long is this self-quarantining after leaving going to go on? We're hoping that the governor will soon let us travel without having to self-quarantine, but until she does, we're being very cautious about what we're asking you to do. In the meantime, we're making good preparations, and I hope that you will be pleased and excited to hear about all the things that we've got planned and that we're working on to keep you healthy and safe no matter when we go. We're working with the U.S. Travel Association. That's a national organization of tour planners, transportation systems, attractions. All of us together are working to make sure that all of us have the right protocols in place. We're working to provide you the great Sun Tours experience that you've had for 42 years. We want that to continue. And we are promising that we're not going to take you any place, ask you to go any place until we know that it's really safe for you to go there. So what does that mean? Well, it means that our groups are going to be smaller. We're not going to be taking as many people. In the past, sometimes we've taken 45 or 50 people on a tour. We can't ask you to do that because we need to have social distancing, not just when you're on a walking tour, but when you're on a motor coach. Some of the airlines are still doing social distancing on the planes. Some of them are not. We're going to be very cautious about the planes that we book and what time of day they're booked and those kinds of things, so we can try to create as much room on the plane for you as possible. On the motor coaches, we are going to be practicing social distancing. That means that there won't be a seat rotation. You'll be in the same seat for the entire trip. And that means that the coach will be cleaned every night. And that means that there should be a row in front of you and behind you that's empty. We'll also be asking you to use hand sanitizer every time you get back on the coach from any stop. And we're asking you to be responsible for yourself. Let us know if you're not feeling well as soon as that happens so that we can help you self-quarantine at the hotel, so that we can help you do what needs to be done to keep the entire group safe. We're also working with our destinations and attractions to make sure that they have room and systems for you to socially distance and for you to stay safe when you're with us. The other thing that small groups is going to mean is that you're going to be divided in some instances into smaller walking tours. Perhaps there'll be more step-on guides to help you get around and find out about our attractions so that you can be in smaller groups and socially distance. We're also bringing in some new technology. Some of you who have been to European destinations might be familiar with the little earpieces and wireless headsets that the tour directors can use to speak to you at a distance. And we have bought a system of those that we will be using so that you can maintain social distancing and still hear the tour director in our tours. So we'll be asking you to wear your mask. We will be practicing social distancing. We will be utilizing hand sanitizer. When you arrive at your hotel, we're working with the hotels so that you don't have to clump up in the lobby and wait for your room key. We're going to have those room keys ready so that you can be handed those room keys and go directly to your room and not have to wait in the lobby. Those kinds of things are going to be very important. We will be doing temperature checks, and you will be asked to do a waiver and health questionnaire before we take off. So all of that is part of the kinds of changes that we're putting in place based on what we know now about what's needed. Now, this tour doesn't leave until next March. A lot of things can change. Things are changing every day. We certainly hope that there's a widely distributed vaccine by next March, but we're going to plan to be careful. We're going to plan to be safe, and we're going to plan to have a great time so that you can feel good about getting out on the road again. So that's our plans. If you have any questions, please email or call us. We're happy to talk to you about anything else in detail. So, of course, many of you know Ed, and here he is. He's going to be your tour director for this terrific tour to Charleston and Savannah. Ed, why don't you take it away?
Okay, thank you, Leslie. And just wanted to do a quick sound check. Is it okay?
Yep,
Great.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. All my Sun Tours friends out there. You know, I can't tell you how much I've missed you all this year. This COVID-19 is arguably the most challenging period of our lifetime in terms of traveling. I've missed you all so very much, and I've missed with Sun Tours. For those of you that are keeping track of me, you know, earlier I announced my retirement at the end of this year, but because of COVID-19 and all of the postponements, I've decided to postpone my retirement until the end of next year. So let's start it, and let's go from the Southwest to the Southeast. This tour to Charleston and Savannah, I've led so many times. And folks, I'm telling you, everyone from this area who grew up here, who's unfamiliar with South Carolina and Georgia, and those two great cities down there, Charleston and Savannah, we're going to get to know these places very well. It's a wonderful trip, and I do so hope that you'll come with us. All right, Leslie, let's begin with the slide presentation. So yeah, here we are at the Albuquerque airport. We're going to be leaving on the day of March 26th, and let's keep this slide on for a while. So folks, yeah, we have a direct flight to Charleston, South Carolina, y'all. And we're going to begin our tour there. There's a very good map and visual of what the local people call the Low Country. We call this collectively the Low Country from Charleston, Savannah. You can see how close it is to the Atlantic Ocean, and we're going to take advantage. One of the great delights, by the way, on taking this tour is the wonderful seafood that we'll have an opportunity to dine at all these wonderful restaurants, both in Charleston and Savannah. So, so here is our visual aid of the two states we're going to be visiting, both South Carolina and Georgia, highlighting the two cities, Charleston and Savannah. We're going to be spending our nights in either one of those two cities. And then, of course, one day we'll be traveling between them with the stops there you see at Paris Island and points in between. All right, Leslie, what's next? All right, so folks, on day one, here we are in Charleston. That's actually a picture of St. Philip's Church. Charleston, the city of Charleston, was founded in 1670, and it's known for so many things, but one of the things it's known for is it's known as the city of steeples. I can't tell you how many steeples and churches there are in downtown Charleston. This is one of the more prolific ones, St. Philip's Church. It was built in 1680, and then, of course, as so often was the case, unfortunately, the first original building was destroyed by fire, and its replacement was built in the 1830s. This is actually the oldest congregation in the colonies south of Virginia. So we're going to begin our day with a city tour. This is, again, the reason why I love being a tour director so much with Sun Tours, is that they find these wonderful step-on guides who live in the area, know the area, and we're going to take advantage of their knowledge. We're going to, once we get away from the airport and meet our driver and coach and gather ourselves, we're going to be going to the Charleston Visitor Center and have a good introduction to the city of Charleston. For you folks who've never been to Charleston, stereotypically, people think of Charleston as the origin of the Civil War, but it's so much more than that. It has so much charm and so much history, including Revolutionary history. So we'll meet our step-on guide and take a 2 to 3 hour tour with our step-on guide through the streets of Charleston, seeing all the sights and attractions. So before we even settle in during our first evening in the city of Charleston, you all will have a good feeling for that city. And let's see what's next, Leslie. Okay, top things to eat in Charleston and Savannah, it says. So again, one of the highlights on this tour are the wonderful foods. Now, what I like to do the first evening, especially I invite the single people, because we do have a lot of single travelers, people who are not with a companion or spouse, and I hate for anyone single to have to eat alone. So that first evening, I invite, everyone's welcome, but especially the single travelers. I invite everybody to meet me in the lobby, and we go to one of my favorite seafood restaurants right there. It's just a block or two from our hotel, which, by the way, is very conveniently located in the old historic center of Charleston. And we go to this Hyman's seafood restaurant, and everybody has a wonderful time. I know the owners, they treat us so well, and the owners come to our table and we get acquainted with them. They're very cordial. The city of Charleston is voted, I think, #1 year after year as the most courteous, mannerly city in the United States. And people are, Charleston are that old school Southern charm. So you'll get introduced to all of that at Hyman's. Some of the foods that you'll be introduced to are the she crab soup and boiled peanuts and shrimp and grits. And you see a picture in the upper right-hand corner, the hush puppies. That's a delicacy that they serve in all the restaurants, including Hyman's. And the old story behind the hush puppies, if you didn't know, is that back in the old days of the South, where everyone had dogs, they made this recipe from leftovers of cornmeal and sugar and onions, and they deep fried battered these this product, food item, and they called it hush puppies. And they used to feed it to the dogs to keep them quiet and away from the other food. So that's how hush puppies get their name. So you betcha, we're going to put some South in your mouth while we visit Charleston. Next slide, please. Okay, so after we're well rested on the morning of day 2, there it is, an aerial view of Fort Sumter. So Fort Sumter is guarding the harbor of the city of Charleston. We're going to take a boat like that from, oh, actually, yeah, that's the boat that we'll be taking out to visit Fort Sumter. Of course, where the first shots were fired during and the beginning of the Civil War. It's a very, very nice boat ride from the city of Charleston to Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter is on this very small island guarding the port or the harbor of Charleston. Now, I don't know, we all have varying degrees of interest probably in the Civil War, but all of us have studied the Civil War. And I've studied it very much, and I've read many, many books, but nothing replaces actually visiting and going on site on the premise of Fort Sumter. No matter how many textbooks and pictures that you might have seen, nothing can replace actually being on the site and seeing it with your own eyes. It's a wonderful day trip out there. Once we arrive, you can do your own thing, or they have ranger-led talks by the rangers who are very well informed in regarding all of the historical events that occurred there on Fort Sumter. And by the way, more times than not, when we take the boat ride out to Fort Sumter, we'll see dolphins frolicking in the water beside us, which is always a great thrill for folks to see. So yeah, the water life around the harbor of Charleston is teeming with dolphins, and hopefully we'll be able to see them for our visit. Next slide, please, Leslie. Okay, well, we certainly hope it looks like that, and we have every intention that it will be. During the time that we'll be visiting the Charleston area on day 2, after we visit Fort Sumter, we're going to take a short drive up a nearby river known as Ashley River to visit an antebellum plantation. If you're not familiar with the word antebellum, all that implies, folks, is that before the Civil War. So when you hear antebellum this or antebellum that, antebellum plantation, what we're talking about is the period of time prior to the Civil War. This is known as the Middleton Place. It's a prolific antebellum plantation with beautiful, beautiful gardens. And that's not in any way touched up. It really does look like that. Those azaleas, when they're in bloom, are absolutely stunning and gorgeous. And I can't wait to show them to you. So this is a picture of a live oak with a Spanish moss and the azalea garden in the background. Okay, Leslie. So in addition to the gardens, we're going to be visiting the plantation house. There were 2. One was burned down during the Civil War when the Sherman and the Yankees invaded the South, but they left the second home. And we're going to be able to take a house tour of that house and understand the history of the home, the plantation, and the family who ran the plantation. And yes, there's livestock there. What the staff have done has tried to recreate a living history museum so people can get a sense of what plantation life was like during that period of time. And I have people that come up to me after I've taken them to this place and they say, you know, Ed, I was raised in New Mexico. I'm from the Southwest, even Colorado or Arizona. I never have gotten that intimate touch with life in the Old South. And now I finally, having benefited by going on this tour to Middleton Plantation, truly understand what life was like during this period of time in our history. And so what's next? So that's an aerial view of still Middleton Place, including some of the gardens, the house, And we're going to have lunch at Middleton Place. Your tour includes an included lunch. And I'm not kidding you, folks. I have actually had one gentleman who repeated this tour. He took it 2 years in a row just so he could have that Southern fried chicken at Middleton Place once again. It's that good. And I'm from the South, so I know what's good, especially fried chicken. All right, day 3. So that'll be day 2, and we return to the hotel. Once again, conveniently located, very close to all of the restaurants and shops. We got to go back, Leslie. Sorry. And dinner will be on your own. The reason I asked you to go back, Leslie, is that this shows the Sweetwater baskets. One of the possibilities of souvenirs that you might consider purchasing are these Sweetwater baskets that are hand woven by the Gullah people. The Gullah people are the African Americans who have lived along the seacoast barrier islands for generations. And in one of the markets in the city of Charleston, they have a booth where you can see them hand weaving these Sweetwater baskets as they're known. This is just a small assortment of what's available for purchase. And it's quite interesting. So yeah, hand woven, and the Gullah people even have their own dialect. And if you go on this tour, you'll learn a lot about their culture and their way of life. And you'll have an opportunity to meet some of them. They're charming, delightful folks. I really enjoy their company. All right, now we can go next slide, Leslie. Thank you very much. So on day 3, we're going to once again leave in the morning the city of Charleston, and we're going to be visiting yet again another antebellum plantation. It's known as the Magnolia Plantation. Now, let's see what this is, the house there at the Magnolia Plantation. Okay, next slide, please, Leslie. All right, so this is on the grounds of the Magnolia Plantation. Folks, if you've never heard of this place, it is stunning. It is wonderful. In fact, guess what? This was the first public gardens in the United States. First public gardens in the United States. And when they were created and opened to the public in the later 1800s, the 3 most outstanding places to visit during that time in our country were the Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls, and Magnolia Gardens outside Charleston, South Carolina. Let's see what the next slide is. Okay, well, actually, that should be back at Middleton Place. There aren't any alligators at Magnolia Plantation, but there are a few at Middleton Place, which will be at day 2. But, you know, you just maintain your distance. They're quite thrilling, actually, to see from a distance, right? But it's very possible we'll be able to see some alligators while we're there. Next slide, please, Leslie. Okay, now we're back to Magnolia Plantation. And once again, there are walking trails. We're going to have plenty of time to enjoy our visit there. I guarantee you, we're going to get to know this place. There are loads of walking trails, and it's just a wonderful place to visit the gardens. It's just stunning, and it's located right along the edge of the Ashley River again. Folks, you can always, you know, do a little bit of your own research prior to taking this trip, and you can go online and Google Magnolia Plantation and learn a little bit about it before you go. And I encourage you all to do that. We'll share lots of information with all of these places where we visit, but it always helps to have a little bit of an introduction before we go see it on the tour. Thank you, Leslie. Next. Okay, so after we visit Magnolia Plantation, we will be having lunch, and we're going to be visiting an area of Charleston that's known as Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. And of course, the main attraction there is the USS Yorktown. I don't know if you have the same caption as I do, but it says it's the recovery vessel for the Apollo 8. This is a aircraft carrier that's 900 feet in length. If you've never had an opportunity to go on board an aircraft carrier, this is a wonderful experience, and the people tremendously enjoy the visit. Of course, they also have other exhibits there, including a destroyer and a submarine, but the main attraction is definitely the USS Yorktown, and this is where we're going to be going and spending our afternoon on day 3 of our tour. Thank you, Leslie. Oh, we got more Sweetwater baskets, day 4. Okay, well, we talked about them, so we can see what the next slide is. Okay, so on the morning of day 4, we have to say goodbye to the city of Charleston, and we'll be headed south towards the city of Savannah. On the way, we're going to be making a few stops. One of the stops along the way is, we've been mostly in the city of Charleston and enjoying the urbanness of the Low Country, but we're going to get a little bit of feeling for the coastline as we make our trip south. So the name of this place is called the Port Royal Boardwalk and Observation Tower. And we're going to be able to enjoy the beach, the views, the wildlife. They have a boardwalk there, and we'll get a sense of why this is one of the most popular areas in the country for seniors to retire to. This low country along the Atlantic seaboard, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. So we're making a stop there. For those of you that are able, we can go up to the top of that observation tower and take in the views. It's a great spot, and I'm glad SunTours has included it on their tour. Next. Okay, in addition, we're going to be also visiting Parris Island, one of the 2 places where the Marines are trained to serve their country. And it's a great visit. I had never had an opportunity to visit Parris Island before I was leading this trip with SunTours. And I'm so thankful that we get a chance to visit the Parris Island Museum and understand a little bit about of course, the Semper Fi and the Marine Corps spirit. Next slide, please. So this is a generic statue. It's known as Iron Mike, and it's a memorial to all of the Parris Island graduates who were killed in action during World War I. This is just one of many slides that we could have shown. And Iron Mike, Parris Island, there he is. Next slide, please. Another slide of Iron Mike. Okay, wow, you talk about a change of pace. So we go from the Parris Island and along the way to a complete change, and it's known as the, let's see, what is it called? It's the Kazubi, that's what I couldn't think of. It's a kazoo factory and museum. This is loads of fun. We did this last time, and the people really, really enjoyed it very, very much. We all get to make our own kazoo, and you get to take it home as a souvenir. We might even orchestrate a couple of songs that we can all play together. We'll form our own SunTours kazoo ensemble. How does that sound for everybody? So there's a picture of a bunch of kazoos. They make kazoos. I don't know if there are even any other kazoo factories in the country, but this is one of the best. And they make a lot of these kazoos. You can see advertising slogans on them, so that's very popular. and as well as it was a popular visit for our tour. So yeah, the Kazoo Factory on the way to Savannah. Thank you, Leslie. All right, so we are checking in to Savannah, and let's go on to the next slide, Leslie. Yeah, okay, day 5. So we've arrived in Savannah. When we get to Savannah, I'll do a quick tour around the city, get everybody familiar, oriented. I always like to do this upon arrival. In other words, we're not going to go straight to our hotel. We'll do a little drive around, sharing a little bit about the history of this second wonderful southern city that we'll be visiting, Savannah, Georgia. All right, so you know, we retire for the evening. I'll give you all sorts of possibilities for dining that evening, and in fact, we just might go ahead and arrange another, not an included meal, but a together meal for all of those of you that would like a little camaraderie that evening, and share dinner with your fellow Sun Tours travelers. Okay, so this is the Savannah River. This is looking south at the Savannah riverfront. And we're going to be taking a boat ride at some point on our tour. I think it's, whether it's the evening of day 4 or day 5, you can see the paddle boat there, folks. A very good picture. We'll find out, obviously, before we go which night it is. This is a highlight of the tour. We're going to be having an evening and included dinner on our waterfront boat cruise, and it's a wonderful experience. It's after the sun sets. You get to see the skyline in the evening. We'll go upriver, we'll go downriver while you all are enjoying the meal, and it's a wonderful, not only dining experience, but it's a wonderful sightseeing experience as well. All right, so here is an aerial view of the city of Savannah, Georgia. This town was laid out by its founder going back to the year 1733. James Oglethorpe was his name, and he laid out these squares that have held up through today, the famous squares of Savannah, Georgia. So it's hard to see the squares from this particular slot, but mostly where you see the trees and the green foliage are where the squares are located. In this somewhat segmented view, aerial view of the city of Savannah. This is one of the famous squares in Savannah. It's, you know, this was where Forrest Gump was filmed, where that famous picture of him sitting on the bench reminiscing in one of the squares of Savannah. So I don't know for sure which square this is. It might be Oglethorpe Square, but I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to go ahead and say something that it's not. But this is a wonderful example of the many squares. I think there's 33 squares in the city of Savannah, and they're wonderful. They'll be wonderful to walk through. You can see this one is highlighted by this wonderful water fountain there. And yes, you know, the wonderful live oak trees and the Spanish moss that the city is known for. So you'll all get a good look at this during our stay. Now, on the morning of day 5, we're actually going to be taking one of these famous old Savannah trolley tours. Savannah is known for their trolley tours. And rather than take the tour on the coach, we here at Sun Tours have decided to transfer from the coach to the trolley because we have access to streets that our motor coach cannot go down. They're prohibited on certain streets from our full-size motor coach. So we'll transfer to the old Savannah trolley tours and take their tour, and it's wonderful. You'll have a wonderful, well-done narrated tour of the city of Savannah on the morning of day 5. So let's see. So on day 6, we're gonna get up and get going again. One of the first attractions that we'll be visiting is known as Fort Pulaski National Monument Visitor Center. So the history behind these forts, folks, is that after the War of 1812 against the Brits, it revealed a lot of the shortcomings of the coastal defense of our nation. So President James Madison declared that he was going to and ordered 200 forts to be built along our eastern seaboard as a way of protection and fortification. Only 30 were completed, actually. This is one of those 30, and Fort Sumter, by the way, was another one. This is named Fort Pulaski, so we're going to be able to visit this old fort, and you can see all of the shell holes there. This thing was bombarded mercilessly back in the Civil War. 25 million bricks was built creating this fort. Fort Pulaski on the morning of day 6. What's next, Leslie? Also, on the day of day 6, we're going to be going back to the coast, very close, within like 20 miles from the city of Savannah is the Atlantic coast. And we're going to have an opportunity to visit what's known as Tybee Island. Tybee is an old Indian word that was corrupted, and according to most historians, it's always a slight difference of opinion, but most historians agree the word Tybee means salt in the local Indian language. So that's why and how this island got named. It's known as Tybee Island. We're going to be visiting the lighthouse at this one stop. In addition, there's the Lighthouse Museum. And in addition to that, there's the Tybee Island Museum. It's a wonderful stop, and you all are going to enjoy. Oh, and of course, it's so different, right, from what we're used to. How many lighthouses are there in New Mexico? I tell you, folks, even though we think we're a very homogenous country, it's not till you take these tours and get out there and you realize it's a whole different culture between Charleston and Savannah than what we're used to here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that's one of the great thrills of travel. So here are some scenes of Tybee Island. You can see all the people out there in the watercraft enjoying the water recreation. And we love seeing those bodies of water, don't we, coming from the high desert. So what's next, Leslie? Okay, so we're going to make our way back to the city of Charleston after our visit out there at Tybee Island. And this is known as the Owens Thomas House. It's one of many homes, historic homes, that we could visit. It would take a month, I think, to visit all the historic homes just in the town of Savannah alone. But this is a particularly great stop. It's known as the Owens and Thomas House, another picture of it. It was built in the 18 teens, originally owned by a cotton merchant. He lost the house because of a financial panic, and it was eventually purchased in auction by the current mayor of Savannah at that time in the year 1830. And his name was George Owens, and he held it in his family until 1951. So from 1830 to 1951, it was all held by one family. It was finally bequeathed by his granddaughter, whose last name was Thomas. So that's how you get the Owens and Thomas House. What I love about this house, this is an interior view. We're going to be taking a tour through the house led by docents who work there. And they're going to be explaining to us this dynamic between the very wealthy people, the elite of the town of Savannah, and the ones that were not well off at all, of course, applying the slaves. I think these were some of the slaves' quarters at Owens and Thomas House. So we're going to have a good dialogue of this conversation between the elite and the slaves. What I especially love about this house, though, I don't know if you all have heard about tabby construction. Joe, I know you've heard about tabby construction. This is a common way of constructing homes in the Southeast. primarily Georgia and northern Florida. And what it is, it's a mixture of lime and oyster shells and sand. And this home was made out of this material known as tabby. We'll hear a lot more about tabby during our tour. St. Augustine is another place where a lot of homes and structures were made out of tabby. Of course, the way of life, you remember 1830, it's unimaginable for us to think of how people lived back then, I think. Just think of sanitation and cooking, all the things that we really press the button for. It was all dealt with manual labor, hard work all day long from sun up to sundown. So we'll get a sense of that while we visit Owens and Thomas House. So on day 7, we're going to be visiting everyone the only Prohibition museum in our country. It's located in Savannah, Georgia, and I think Leslie has a short video. So to remind everybody, the 18th Amendment was passed in 1920 and it banned the selling of alcohol. It lasted 13 years, right, from 1920 to 1933. So we'll go back to that era with all of its problems at the American Prohibition Museum. The one thing I did not include that I want to make sure everybody does know, and I'm sorry, folks, we're not sure of the order, but during our nights in Savannah, one evening we're going to take that boat cruise, dining on the water, and another evening, Sun Tours has been able to get reservations at Paula Deen's restaurant. And they are hard to come by. I don't know how they did it. When you go, when I've taken people in the past, they want to go to Paula Deen's restaurant and it's an hour wait and they don't have enough time. So they're not able to meet there, to dine there. But we do have an included dinner at Paula Deen's restaurant. So all my friends from Sun Tours, I miss you guys. I hope you take this tour. Stay well, stay safe. We hope this COVID-19 will be in the rearview mirror soon. I missed you guys, and I'll turn it over to Leslie now. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ed. So just a little bit more information for you about this tour. The tour includes, of course, your round-trip airfare from Albuquerque to Charleston, Savannah back to Albuquerque, your 6 nights lodging, 6 breakfasts, 2 dinners, all of the attractions, of course, your great tour director, Ed, and the cost is $2,795 for double occupancy per person. And you've got quite a bit of time before your final payments due. Your deposit of $200 will hold your spot. So you can give that some consideration. It is a great tour, and Ed has done it many times, really loves the area and knows so much about it. I want to bring your quick attention to 3 tours that are happening in New Mexico. Of course, we all know that right now we have to self-quarantine if we leave New Mexico, but we do have 3 tours coming up that would help you get out of the house, get away for just a little bit. Coming up, the first is White Sands and the End of the Mountain Gods. It's just an overnight, but if you're dying to get away, this is a great little tour. We'll stop at the Hubbard Museum of the American West. We'll stop at White Sands National Monument. We will also stop at the Heart of the Desert Pistachio and Wines Farm and have a tour and tasting there. and it's just $385 per person, double occupancy. So it's a great way to get yourself out of the house for one night with the Sun Tours group. That's a coach tour, of course. All of these will be coach tours, as we mentioned earlier. The next one is a brand new tour for us. We're very excited that we have been able to get time at the Taos El Monte Sagrado Spa. So if you're looking for an elegant getaway, the El Monte Sagrado is just a gorgeous hotel, beautiful hotel to try. And it's a two-night, 3-day tour. See the Blumenschein Home and Museum, the Taos Pueblo, Mabel Dodge Lujan House, the Taos Plaza, Chimayo, all of the highlights of a visit to Taos while you're staying in the very elegant surroundings of El Monte Sagrado. $875 per person, double occupancy. And then lastly, we have a tour on the Pecos River. And that is an overnight tour as well. Leaves December 2nd, returns December 3rd. It includes a boat ride on the Pecos River to see all of the Christmas decorations that the city and homeowners put up along the river. And you'll visit as well Carlsbad Caverns, the Roswell Museum and Art Center, the Roswell Alien Museum, which is always a good time. And then you'll come back through Billy the Kid Country. And this is $395 double occupancy per person. So all of those tours still have some availability on them. We'd love to have you join us on any or all of them. You just need to give us a call or email us, and we will be immediately responsive if you have any questions. Frank, Dana, have you been able to answer all of the questions that people have been chatting about? Do we have anything outstanding still?
Yes, Leslie, thank you. There were some very good questions. A couple, one was about hotels in Charleston. We do stay at the Hampton Inn Charleston Historic District, and in Savannah at the Homewood Suites Riverfront Savannah Historic District. So they're both very conveniently located hotels, very comfortable places to stay. Question about the weather. And this time of year, daytime temperatures typically are in the 60s, to be very comfortable traveling weather. Another question was with regard to the number of passengers. Currently, Sun Tours, based on its COVID restriction policies, is limiting our coach tours to 25 passengers. This allows for there to be an empty row of seats between each row of passengers. Now, those rules may change between now and then, but that is our current restriction, is limiting this to 25 passengers. So if you are interested in this, we would encourage you to sign up right away, because you want to get on it and not end up on the waiting list or find that you're unable to join the tour. And I think those were the major cancellation fees. You can sign up for this tour for a $200 deposit. It is fully refundable to December 18th. So you have lots of time to consider it. After that time, cancellation fees start to go into effect. The details of those can be found in the tour description on our website at www.suntoursUS.com.
Right there. Okay, great. Thank you, Frank. Thanks very much. Thank you all for coming. Next week, we are going to be talking about a wonderful bucket list tour to Germany, Austria, and the Oberammergau Passion Play. The Passion Play was scheduled for 2020. Because of COVID, the city of Oberammergau had to cancel the Passion Play. This little town of about 5,000 people receives about 10 times that many visitors during the during the Passion Play. So they had to cancel, and they have put off the Passion Play until 2022. We have tickets for 2 different tours to Germany, Austria, and both of them include premium seats to the Passion Play. So if you've ever wanted to see that amazing performance, please think about joining us next Thursday to learn all about those 2 tours. Thank you so much for coming today. We look forward to seeing you soon. Stay safe, stay healthy. We will travel again. We will. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.